Have you ever stood at a crossroads, overwhelmed by the sheer number of paths you could take? We crave freedom, the ability to choose our own way. But what if that very freedom, the boundless horizon of possibility, conceals a subtle, almost invisible trap? A trap that, once understood, might change how you navigate your entire life. This isn't about external constraints, but an internal one, far more profound. It's the kind of trap that doesn't bind your hands but can weigh heavily on your spirit. A paradox where the more choices you have, the more burdened you might feel. We'll explore this hidden aspect of freedom today, drawing from a truly challenging thinker. We turn to Jean-Paul Sartre, a philosopher who dared to look into the abyss of human freedom and report back what he found. His insights are not always comfortable, but they are undeniably powerful. He speaks of a freedom so absolute, it can feel like a condemnation, a heavy cloak rather than a light pair of wings. Sartre's journey into freedom begins with a revolutionary idea: existence precedes essence. What does this mean? Imagine a craftsman making a paper knife. He has an idea, a blueprint, its essence before it exists. For humans, Sartre argued, it's the reverse. We are born, we exist, and then we define ourselves. There is no pre-written script for your life, no divine plan or inherent human nature that dictates who you must become. You are born as a blank slate, or rather, as pure potential. Your essence, what makes you you, is not given. It is created by your choices, your actions, your passions. This is the foundation of what Sartre called radical freedom. You are not just free to choose between options A or B, you are free to define what options A and B even mean to you. You are free to invent your own values, your own purpose. This is an immense, almost terrifying scope of liberty. So where is the trap in this exhilarating vision of freedom? Sartre's chilling insight is this: if we are truly, radically free to create ourselves, then we are also absolutely responsible for what we create. There are no excuses, no one else to blame, no blueprint to fall back on. This total responsibility is the core of the freedom trap. Think about it. Every choice you make, from the monumental to the mundane, is a brushstroke in the portrait of who you are. It's not just about choosing a career or a partner. It's about choosing the kind of human being you want to be. This relentless act of self-creation, with no external guide, can be overwhelming. This is why Sartre famously said we are condemned to be free. Condemned because we did not choose to be free in this radical way, we simply are. And because we are free, we cannot escape the responsibility that comes with it. It's a condition of our existence, a fundamental aspect of being human. Imagine being thrown into the world without a map, without a compass, and told to find your own way and define your own destination. This is the Sartrean predicament. The lack of preordained meaning or purpose means we must invent it for ourselves, and that is a colossal task. This profound responsibility, this awareness that our choices define not only ourselves, but also our vision of humanity, leads to what Sartre termed anguish. It's not everyday anxiety. It's a deeper, existential dread that stems from recognizing the full weight of our freedom. It's the dizziness of standing on the edge of infinite possibilities. Anguish arises when we realize that in choosing for ourselves, we are, in a sense, choosing for all mankind. When you decide how to act in a situation, you are implicitly saying, "This is how a human being should act." This isn't about arrogance. It's about the inescapable consequence of making a value judgment through your actions. Consider a leader making a critical decision in wartime, or an individual choosing to act with courage or cowardice. Their choice doesn't just affect them, it becomes a testament, an image of humanity they are endorsing. This realization can be crushing, a source of profound anguish. This is part of the freedom trap. The trap, then, isn't freedom itself, but the emotional and psychological burden of its radical nature. We are architects of our own lives, but also of our own values, with no divine blueprint. The weight of this creative responsibility can make us yearn for simpler times, for someone else to tell us what to do, what to be. Next, Sartre identifies forlornness. This comes from the realization that if God does not exist, or if there is no predetermined human nature, then we are truly alone in making our choices. There are no absolute external values to guide us or justify our actions. We are abandoned to our own devices. Forlornness means that we cannot find excuses for our behavior in some preordained moral code or divine command. We must invent our own morality, our own reasons for living. Dostoevsky wrote, "If God did not exist, everything would be permitted." Sartre adds, and thus, man is forlorn because he cannot find anything to cling to. Imagine a student choosing a field of study. Without a guiding voice saying, "This is your destiny," the choice is entirely theirs, and so is the responsibility for its consequences. This aloneness in decision-making, without ultimate validation from an external source, is forlornness. It's another facet of the freedom trap. The third element Sartre describes is despair. This doesn't mean giving up in hopelessness. Rather, it means we should confine ourselves to reckoning only with what depends on our will, or on the ensemble of probabilities that make our action possible. We cannot rely on possibilities outside our direct influence. Despair, in Sartre's view, means recognizing that the world doesn't owe us success or happiness. We can only count on our own actions and their likely consequences. We cannot hope for a miracle or an external force to save us. We must act without hope, in the sense of hoping for outcomes beyond our control. So, anguish from responsibility, forlornness from lack of external justification, and despair from relying only on our actions. These are the emotional consequences of radical freedom. Together, they constitute the freedom trap that Sartre warns us about. It's the dark underbelly of our liberation. Faced with this daunting reality, what do many of us do? We try to escape. Sartre had a term for this escape: bad faith or mauvaise foi. Bad faith is a form of self-deception where we pretend we are not free or that our choices are not really ours. One common form of bad faith is to say, "I had no choice." We blame circumstances, our upbringing, our personality, or societal pressures. We essentially try to turn ourselves into objects, things determined by external forces, rather than free subjects who choose. Another example of bad faith is rigidly conforming to a social role, like the dutiful parent or the serious intellectual, to the point where you deny any freedom outside that role. You become the role, forgetting you chose it and can choose otherwise. You act as if your essence, the role, precedes your existence. Sartre's famous example is the waiter who performs his role with exaggerated precision, almost like an automaton. He is playing at being a waiter, identifying so completely with his function that he denies his transcendent freedom, his ability to be something else. This is a flight from the anxiety of freedom. Why is bad faith so tempting? Because it offers an illusion of relief from the burden of anguish, forlornness, and despair. If I'm just a product of my circumstances, or if my role dictates my actions, then I'm not fully responsible. It's a comforting lie, but a lie nonetheless. The irony, of course, is that choosing bad faith is itself a choice. Even in denying our freedom, we are exercising it. We are choosing to deceive ourselves. So, there is no real escape from freedom. There's only the choice between acknowledging it, authenticity, or denying it, bad faith. The freedom trap, then, becomes particularly insidious when we fall into bad faith. We think we've escaped the burden, but we've only added self-deception to it, living an inauthentic life. We are still responsible, but we refuse to acknowledge it, leading to a deeper, unacknowledged malaise. So if bad faith is the trap amplified, what is the way through? Sartre points towards authenticity. Authenticity means courageously facing our radical freedom and its consequences. It means accepting our total responsibility for who we are and what we do without excuses. Authenticity isn't about achieving some perfect state. It's about the ongoing, honest confrontation with our choices. It's about recognizing that we are constantly creating ourselves and embracing that creative process, however daunting it may be. It's about living in truth with our condition. Living authentically means understanding that even not choosing is a choice. If you drift through life, letting others decide for you, or passively accepting your circumstances, you have chosen to let that happen. Authenticity demands we own these choices too. How can one begin to cultivate this authenticity? It starts with ruthless self-honesty. Look at your life, your decisions. Where are you acting in bad faith? Where are you telling yourself, I have to, when in reality you are choosing to? This self-examination isn't meant to induce guilt, but awareness. The goal is to reclaim your agency, to see where you have abdicated your freedom, and to begin consciously choosing in alignment with values you have, yourself, examined and affirmed. Authenticity means embracing the anguish, not as something to be avoided, but as a sign of your awareness of freedom. It means accepting forlornness, understanding that you are the sole author of your moral compass. And it means acting with despair, focusing on what you can do. The freedom trap, therefore, is not an indictment of freedom itself. It's a warning about how we relate to it. If we try to shirk its responsibilities, we are trapped. If we embrace them, however heavy, we find a path to a life of genuine meaning, a life we have authored. Sartre's philosophy is demanding. It offers no easy comforts, no prepackaged answers. But it offers something perhaps more valuable, a profound respect for human dignity, for our capacity to create meaning in a meaningless universe through our choices and actions. So the next time you feel overwhelmed by choices or burdened by responsibility, remember Sartre. This feeling is not a malfunction, it is a sign of your freedom. The question is, how will you respond to it? Will you flee into bad faith, or will you embrace your power to create? The freedom trap is the anxiety of being the artist of your own life without a guaranteed masterpiece at the end. But the act of painting, of choosing each color and stroke with intention and responsibility, is where the true value lies. It is the process of becoming. Understanding this trap doesn't make the weight of freedom disappear, but it can transform it from a source of paralyzing fear into a catalyst for courageous, authentic living. It's about recognizing that this very burden is also our greatest gift, the capacity to define ourselves. Jean-Paul Sartre's message is ultimately one of empowerment, albeit a stark and demanding one. You are free. This freedom is total, and therefore you are totally responsible. The trap is fearing this. The liberation is embracing it. What will you choose to build with such radical liberty? To be free is not to be light and carefree, but to be fully engaged in the project of your life, aware of every choice's significance. The trap is only a trap if you fight against the fundamental condition of your being. Accept it, and it becomes the very ground upon which you build a meaningful existence. Consider the weight of a simple yes or no. Each affirmation or refusal shapes your reality. Sartre reminds us that these aren't just passive responses, they are active creations. When you say yes to one path, you are simultaneously saying no to countless others and defining your values in that act. The feeling of being overwhelmed by options is a direct symptom of recognizing your freedom. It's anguish in its nascent form. Instead of shying away, can you pause and acknowledge, I am free here and my choice matters. I am defining myself now. This changes the texture of the decision. Think of a moment you felt intense pressure to conform. That was a confrontation with your freedom. Did you choose to fit in, or did you choose a path truer to yourself, even if harder? Bad faith often whispers that conformity is safety, but authenticity knows that self-betrayal is a higher price. Sartre's philosophy isn't about achieving happiness in the conventional sense. It's about achieving lucidity and integrity. The freedom trap can lead to profound unhappiness if we live in bad faith, constantly fighting our own nature. Authenticity, while challenging, aligns us with reality. The absence of a preordained purpose means we are radically contingent beings. We are here by chance, and then we must make something of it. This can feel terrifying forlornness, or it can feel like the ultimate artistic commission, to create value in a void. When Sartre talks about despair, he means we must act without illusion. We can't control the outcomes, only our commitment and our actions. So, invest your energy in what you do, not in wishing for a particular result you cannot guarantee. This is a practical stance in a world of uncertainty. The trap aspect of freedom often manifests as procrastination or indecision. Why? Because making a choice means committing, means being responsible for that choice. It's easier to stay in the limbo of potential than to actualize one path and bear its weight. But limbo, too, is a choice. Reflect on your daily routines. How much is chosen and how much is unthinking habit? Sartre would urge us to bring awareness to even the smallest actions, recognizing them as affirmations of the person we are becoming. Authenticity lies in this conscious endorsement. The warning about the freedom trap is not a call to pessimism. It's a call to a higher form of seriousness about our lives. If life is a one-time performance and we are writing the script as we go, then every line, every scene, matters profoundly. This gives our existence an undeniable dignity. When you feel the pull of bad faith, the desire to blame others, to say, "It's not my fault," to hide in a role, pause. Recognize that urge as an attempt to escape the glorious, terrible burden of your freedom. Then gently choose again. Choose awareness. The freedom trap is often felt most acutely when we compare ourselves to others. We see their seemingly confident choices and doubt our own, but their path is not yours. Authenticity demands you forge your own way, using your own internal compass, however much it flutters with anguish. Sartre's ideas are not about finding an easy life, but a real one. The trap lies in seeking ease at the cost of truth. The real journey involves embracing the discomfort of freedom, for it is in that discomfort that growth and genuine selfhood are found. Think of the relief that sometimes comes with making a difficult decision. Part of that relief is the realignment with your authentic self, the shedding of the bad faith that kept you stuck. You've accepted responsibility, and in that acceptance, there's a strange kind of peace. The ultimate implication of existence precedes essence is that you are always a work in progress. There's no final state of being authentic. It's a continuous choosing, a perpetual becoming. The trap is to think you've arrived and can stop choosing consciously. So the freedom trap is not a destination, but a way of mishandling the journey. It's the friction that arises when our desire for certainty clashes with the reality of our radical contingency and freedom. The way out is not to eliminate freedom, but to learn to carry its weight with grace and courage. When we feel paralyzed by choice, Sartre might say we are experiencing the dizziness of freedom. Like standing on a precipice, the sheer openness of possibilities can be terrifying. The temptation is to step back, to let someone else choose, to fall into bad faith. Yet in that dizziness lies our power, the ability to choose, to create, to define. The trap is to see only the danger of falling, not the potential for flight, not literal flight, but the flight of self-creation, of choosing a path that is uniquely yours. Consider how often we use phrases like "I have to" or "I must." Are these genuine necessities, or are they subtle ways we deny our agency, our choice in the matter? Sartre challenges us to replace "I have to" with "I choose to" and feel the shift in responsibility. This isn't about denying real-world constraints. We all have limitations, but even within those limitations, we have choices about our attitude, our response, our next action. Authenticity lies in maximizing freedom within the given, not lamenting the given. The freedom trap is believing that happiness lies in having no responsibilities. Sartre suggests that meaning, a more profound state than fleeting happiness, arises precisely from shouldering responsibility, from engaging with the world as a free and active agent. Living authentically means accepting that there are no guarantees. You can make a courageous, well-considered choice, and it may still lead to an undesirable outcome. Despair, in Sartre's sense, means accepting this and continuing to choose and act authentically anyway. The "no one warns you about" part of our title refers to this subtle, internal struggle with freedom's weight. Society often glorifies freedom as an unmitigated good, without preparing us for its profound psychological demands. Sartre pulls back the curtain on this often unspoken truth. When you find yourself envying those who seem to live by strict rules or dogma, recognize this as a longing to escape forlornness, the aloneness of self-determination. But that perceived certainty comes at the cost of authentic self-creation. Is that a price you're willing to pay? The beauty of Sartre's difficult message is its universality. It applies to every human being, regardless of circumstance. We are all condemned to be free. The question is how we inhabit that condemnation, with resentment and self-deception, or with courage and creativity. Authenticity is not a destination but a direction. It's a moment-by-moment commitment to awareness and responsibility. Small acts of conscious choice, repeated daily, build a life of integrity. Don't aim for perfection. Aim for honesty in your choices. The freedom trap lures us with the promise of ease if we just relinquish a bit of our autonomy, our responsibility. Just follow the crowd, it whispers. Just do what's expected. But Sartre reminds us, you are your choices. What will your choices say about who you are? This isn't to say that collaboration or seeking advice is bad faith. The distinction lies in whether you own the final decision. You can gather information, listen to others, but ultimately, the choice to act and the responsibility for that action is yours alone. So the freedom trap is escaped not by finding a way out of freedom, for there is none, but by changing our relationship to it. By seeing responsibility not as a terrifying burden to be avoided, but as the very tool with which we sculpt a life of significance. The next time you feel that familiar anxiety of too many choices or the weight of a decision, try to reframe it. This is not a curse. This is your humanity calling you to create, to define, to be. This is the echo of your radical freedom. Jean-Paul Sartre doesn't offer a comfortable philosophy. He offers a challenging one, but one that ultimately affirms the profound power and dignity inherent in the human condition. We are the artists of our lives. The question is, will we paint boldly, authentically, embracing the full spectrum of our creative responsibility? This journey through Sartre's thought reveals that freedom's trap is less a feature of freedom itself, and more a consequence of our fear of its implications. The weight of responsibility, the solitude of choice, the uncertainty of outcomes, these can feel like snares. But what if these snares are actually guide ropes? What if anguish is the reminder to choose consciously? Forlornness, the impetus to create our own values? Despair, the call to act within our genuine power? The trap becomes a tool when understood correctly. Consider a practical step. When faced with a daunting choice, articulate the values you wish to embody through that choice. This act of definition, of consciously choosing your criteria, is an exercise in authentic freedom. It moves you from passive reaction to active creation. The freedom Sartre describes is not a comfortable armchair. It's a craftsman's workshop. It demands effort, skill, developed through practice, and a willingness to get your hands dirty with the raw material of existence. The trap is wishing for the armchair when you're meant for the workshop. This isn't about constant, grand, heroic choices. It's about the texture of everyday existence. Choosing to listen patiently, to speak truthfully, to act kindly, these small, authentic acts accumulate, shaping your essence more profoundly than sporadic grand gestures. The warning, then, is to be vigilant against the subtle allure of bad faith in its many disguises. Blaming, conforming, playing a role too rigidly, or feigning helplessness. These are the paths into the freedom trap, where responsibility is denied and authenticity withers. Embracing Sartrean freedom means accepting that life is inherently ambiguous. There are rarely perfectly right or wrong answers handed down from on high. Your task is to forge the best answer you can, consonant with the values you choose to uphold, and then own that choice. The profound liberation in Sartre's philosophy is that if you are truly the author of your life, then no past mistake or external judgment can definitively define you, unless you choose to let it. At every moment, you have the freedom to choose anew, to redefine yourself through your next action. So the freedom trap is ultimately a challenge to our courage. The courage to exist without easy answers, to bear the weight of our choices, and to find meaning not in external validation, but in the integrity of our own freely chosen commitments. In essence, Sartre tells us that freedom is not a state of being, but an act of being. It is a continuous project. The trap is to treat it as a possession that can be mislaid or become burdensome. Instead, see it as the very breath of your authentic self. To navigate this freedom is to live in good faith, acknowledging your capacity to choose and your responsibility for those choices. It is to understand that every moment is an opportunity to affirm who you are and who you are striving to become. The weight of this freedom, once understood and accepted, can transform. What felt like a burden can become a source of profound strength, a deep knowing that your life, with all its imperfections and uncertainties, is truly your own creation. Jean-Paul Sartre's warning about the freedom trap is not meant to discourage, but to awaken us to the immense potential and profound responsibility that comes with being human. It is an invitation to live more fully, more consciously, more authentically. So carry this understanding with you. Your freedom is your power and your burden. The trap is to fear one and resent the other. The path forward is to embrace both, for in that union lies the heart of a truly lived life. The freedom trap is not a place, but a state of mind, a refusal to fully own the awesome, terrifying, beautiful gift of your agency. Step out of that refusal, embrace your condemnation to be free, and discover the profound meaning you alone can build.